Good morning, good afternoon and good evening, and welcome back to Jamie Photography. I'm going to show you something a little bit different today. We're going to take an image that I shot at night and illuminated with a torch, light painted the church, and then we're going to turn it into this black and white image here. So where did we start? Well, we come back into here. We started off with this image here, shot the church. It's quite a long exposure. The sky was grey, early hours of the morning. Managed to light the church up with a torch. Just a 30-second exposure. So we're going to take that image there. We're also going to take a second image, which is with the lights in the porch on. If you walk up to the church, the sort of movement detection picks up you're walking there and lights up the porch. So we've taken the two images, didn't move the camera between the shots, so we can take those two images and we can create a really dramatic black and white. So yeah, we're going to have a play today with these things. So if you'd like to follow along, the raw image for this is down below in the comments. You can find a link and you can download it and follow along. One of the skies here is a sky that I'm actually putting as part of a sky pack, which will be released in the next week or so. So I haven't included that here because that's one of the collections I'm working on. But feel free to download a sky or use one of your own skies. Download a sky from the internet or use one of your own skies to fill this one in. But it's going to be fun. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, then I'd appreciate a like, and if you haven't already subscribed, it would be great to have you join me here on YouTube. Just before we go into the video, I'm just going to briefly just show you my my website. Yeah, so I've just released my website just over a week or so back, and I've put on there some information about me. There's a gallery. You can go look at some of my best images, the things I think I've done very well at. You can also have a look at the About Me, tell you a little bit about who I am and what I do, and what I do with my photography. I've also got a gear page so you can see the gear I use and what I shoot with. I've got some workshops coming up. Feel free to click on those, and you'll find that currently I have a London workshop planned for the 18th of May. If you click on more information, there's plenty of information in there and prices, all-inclusive trips. So we look after you when you're with us. And we can get some real one-to-one time when we do the photography. I'm shortly going to release the information for our Paris trip. That's 7 nights in Paris. A wonderful city, beautiful, romantic place. The architecture is absolutely fantastic, really worth visiting if you've not been to Paris. And in the next week or two, I will be releasing my English medievals workshop, medieval cities. We're going to take a trip across the south of England, and we're going to visit a number of cities: Winchester, Salisbury, Bath, and we're also going to do a dawn shoot at Stonehenge. So that's a 10-day trip. If you're interested in any of these, by all means, go to the contact page here and you can send me a message and say you're interested, and I'll make sure I put you on the mailing list or when they're available. And last of all, I've got my sky packs available now. The nighttime packs are currently available, and I'll be bringing the sunset packs shortly. So they're some of my very best work. I really put real effort into these skies. Hopefully I'll have some previews up shortly as well so you can see what they look like. But take it from me, they're really, really good. Okay, let's get started. So here's the raw image from my Canon R5. And as you can see, it's shot at 1600 ISO, f10, for 30 seconds. Now you might say, well, why f10? Well, anywhere between f8 and f11 is where your lens is sharpest, and that's where you're going to get the least amount of sort of optical errors, things like chromatic aberration and vignetting. So I tend to shoot anywhere between f8 and f11 generally, unless I need a special process in terms of more bokeh or more depth of field. But generally, I tend to shoot around those sort of f-stops. So this image here, we shot 30 seconds, and you can see I had a torch, so I shone the torch at the church, and just to light up this part of the church. And I also just shone it around just a little bit around this area here, so we can see. So if I just bring up the exposure slightly, you can see that we had the beam of light coming out from here at the church, and a little bit of light over there. Now this is a television transmission aerial. It's about 1,000 feet high, quite a long way away. But what I will do is we will generative fill. We will remove that. But you'll also notice just here that I've actually got a little bit of a blur here, and this is actually a raindrop on the lens. So I did try to keep my lens well wiped during the shoot, but I've got one here, and I'll show you how we can deal with that as well. But I also took a second shot. I walked over towards the church, and it's got a movement sensor on the light for the porch area. So I did another shot, still at 30 seconds, f10, but this time ISO 200. So I didn't want the lighting to be too bright. And what I can do here is I can actually bring down the highlights a little bit on this, brighten it up a little bit, bring those highlights down just a little bit more. So we've got a shot of the illuminated area of the church, which is at the right exposure. So those two images, what we're going to do is use both of them to create a little bit of a composite. So we use the light from the porch, but we also use the light from the scene. But the sky is just a cloudy grey sky. It was early in the morning, so I'm also going to do a sky replacement to make sure that we've got a little bit of drama up there. And then I'm going to take this image and go black and white. We're going to do something really dramatic with this, because we've got the light painting. Effectively, we're able to do quite a bit, have some fun effectively with this. But before we go any further, we do need to get into my normal workflow, and we do have to go down to denoise and try to clear up a little bit of the noise that you can see there. Because let me just go back up here. If I bring that exposure back up, you can see, and we'll zoom in there a little bit, you can see that we've got quite a bit of noise around this area. So we do need to use denoise. Now I have had a few comments about the denoise function and how long it takes to actually work. So I'm just going to go at 55% today. I'm going to create. Shall I create a stack? When you create a stack, it puts the original image behind the new image in Lightroom, in the film strip down the bottom. So if you click that, you'll still have the same number. If you don't click that, you'll have one each of the ones before. But I'm going to click that because I don't want to see the older images once we process them. Now it says it's going to take estimated 10 seconds. Okay, but what I would like to do is actually do both of these images. So I'm just going to highlight the other one, holding down the shift key and clicking until I've got both images illuminated. I'm going to click on denoise again, and now it's say 20 seconds, so it's doing two images, and we'll go to 55% as I did before, and we've got the create stack ticked. So we will enhance those two. So you'll see up in the top left corner, it will start working on these. Now some people say the denoise function takes so long, and unfortunately this particular activity comes down to the processes within your computer, the speed of your processor, the speed of your RAM, and the speed of your system generally. So the faster the system you've got, the computer system you have, the quicker it will actually do this. There you go. You can see it's really made huge difference. It's tidied that up. I actually think it's worth about 5 stops of improvement. So shooting at 1600 ISO. If we come down 5 stops, well, that's 800, that's 400, that's 200, that's 100. So down to somewhere between 64 and 100 ISO is the actual noise you get with noise correction if you shoot at 1600. So it's a really positive tool to use. You do get a little bit of a sort of blurring, if you like, but we can deal with that. But I'm going to deal with this raindrop here also. It's more obvious now. But getting back to the point about the speed of your computer, it really does make a difference. So if you are struggling and it's taking minutes or even tens of minutes to do the denoise, unfortunately it comes down to really the speed of your computer and how much patience you've got really to see how long it will take to do. I use an Apple. This is an Apple MacBook Pro. It's an M1 and runs an M1 Max processor. It's pretty quick. I also have a Mac Studio M2 Ultra. That's also very quick as well. So it really does depend where you are. The older the machine, particularly if it's an Intel processor from more than sort of 4 or 5 years ago, it will struggle just a little bit with these new AI features. But just be patient; it will get there. You'll get it done. So we've done the noise correction on both images. What we need to do is just get a rough idea of the exposure value that we want. So this one, I'm not going to go quite as bright as this. I'm just going to bring this back a little bit to about 1.8. I'm just going to bring the highlights down just a little bit. Open up the shadows just a little bit. Do my blacks and whites. So I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key, and I'm just going to find where the whites are. We're going to be removing those lights over here, so they're okay to show. And just do my blacks, hold down the Option or Alt key, move the black down just so we're just touching some blacks. There we go. So that one's correct. I'm going to go over to the other image here. We're going to do the same thing here. With the highlights, we're quite happy with. I've raised it by 2.15 stops already, so I'm happy with that. I think what we'll do is just open up the shadows just a little bit, and then the whites and the blacks, same thing. Hold down the Option or Alt key. We can raise that until we just before the whites are showing there, and the same with the blacks. We've got a lot of black in here. I'll just bring that up just a little. Well, in fact, that goes all the way to the top. So we'll go to plus 100 there just to try to not have too much black in this shot. We still have that same problem, so we're going to need to deal with that in Photoshop. So we're going to now take both of these images over into Photoshop. So one of them's highlighted. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, highlight the second one. So we've got both highlighted. I'm not going to right click on either of these. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to go to Edit In. Now, rather than going straight for the Edit in Photoshop side of here, if you go down, you'll find at the bottom Open as Layers in Photoshop, okay? Because we want to open 2 layers. So I click on that, and it will move it over into Photoshop. There we go. And as you can see over on the right here, it's creating the 2 layers, and there they are. So we've got the darker layer with the lighting on the top, and underneath you've got the church with the light that I painted on using the church. Okay, so we've got, I'm just going to put those in a different order. I'm going to grab the top one and pull it down and put it underneath this one, because this is going to be our main image. This is the one we're going to do the sky replacement on, and then we're going to use the parts of the second image, the lighting area here, and we'll bring those through using the mask. Okay, so let's deal with this problem over here. So I'm just going to go to the zoom here, and we're just going to zoom in. We need to remove this. And there's also a little Christmas tree in the graveyard there. We're going to take those out, and a little light there in the distance. So to remove this, I think the best option is to use generative fill. So I'm just going to go to the lasso tool, and I'm just going to go around where we've got the color and the flare from the lights. There we go, in the tree. I'm going to click generative fill, and I'm going to click generate. And when I click generate with generative fill, I do speed the video up slightly. Option 1, option 2, option 3. So I think I'm going to go with option 2. So although we got a little bit of magenta color there, we can deal with that later on. So happy with that. Now I'm just going to go over to the layers here, and I'm going to bring the generative layers into the background layer. So once I've finished doing these, I'll show you how to do that. But we're just going to take out a couple of other little bits here. So generative fill and generate. Okay, that's option 1, option 2. There we go. Option 3 is fine. Now you also can use the remove tool. So we can go up to the spot healing brush tool, select the remove tool. We can go back down onto this main layer. We can take a slightly smaller brush, and you can make the brush bigger or smaller using the square brackets to the left of the return key on your keyboard, and you can just paint with the remove tool. And the remove tool is very, very good at just removing things that are not too complicated. It's not as good as generative fill, that's for sure. But it works very well on sort of little items. And what you'll see here on this church here is a big crack down the wall, and I'm just going to try to just paint that out with the remove tool. There we go. And the remove tool is very good at removing it, so he just takes that little bit of a distraction away. I'm also just going to zoom in on this porch area and just remove there's a leaflet there. There's a little label on the door there, and there's a little label over there, just to keep it looking a little bit more traditional. That's fine. Now let's deal with this raindrop, as a nuisance it is. So generative fill, we go to lasso tool, and we're going to go around the outside, right, keeping away from the actual blur itself. There we go. Just come through there and back down. So, and then we just click generative fill and generate, and it's there's option 1, option 2, and option 3. Now you can see this little line that runs around where we've removed it, but what we can do is go back to the remove tool. I'm just going to bring all of these layers into one layer first. So click the top layer there and click the layer that we're working on. Let's not click the background one. We're just going to click the top 5. We're going to right click on any one of those, and then we're going to merge the layers. Okay, not merge visible, merge layers, and it will just bring that all of this layer back onto one image again. We'll select the the remove tool, and we're going to make it just a little bit bigger. And what we're going to do is we're just going to paint over that line, you can see, with the remove tool, and it's very clever at determining what we think should be correct. So I'm just literally going over there. I think this looks okay through here. Take that out, so that looks okay. You see it's a little bit, you see there that it's just a little bit faint from where we corrected. One really good feature with the remove tool is if you've got a line running through, if you highlight that line and run through, it will actually quite often either completely remove it, which it did there, or it will actually put it back in again sometimes, which is also very useful. So I'm quite happy with that. I need a little bit more detail in here, so I'm just going to go over to the stamp tool, which is S. I'm going to take a stamp, hold down the Optional Alt key over here, take a stamp from there, and now I can just infill a little bit of what we got there. Same this side. I'm just going to come over here, take a stamp, Alt or Option key, take a stamp from there, and just paint that in. So you've got that same sort of layer, the textures coming through there. So that looks fine. And it's good where the blur was. The bottom of this wall was not complete, and generative fill has actually corrected that. So that's pretty good. So I'm just going to come back out from there. Just needs a little bit more in there. There we go. Right. So we'll zoom back out. So sky replacement on this level. That's definitely something we're going to need to do here. So I'm going to go to Edit, Sky Replacement. This sky is one of my skies here. I am working on a sunset sky pack. You will see if you go to my website that I've currently got a night sky pack available, but I'm also going to shortly be adding a sky pack for sunsets. So this is one of my images here. So I'm not going to share this down below. You'll just get the raw images here of the church. So if you want to add a sky, just go onto Google and go into advanced search, put in greater than 20 megapixels, and then ask for a sunset, and it will give you a sunset you can use as a JPEG. So I'm just going to decrease the color here, the temperature here, more into the oranges, just to get a little bit more of that sort of orange sky, which looks very nice. And I'm just going to bring the brightness down a little bit, just to make it sort of glow a little bit there. Now, we want to make sure that we get the sky inside these trees. And at the moment, you can see, if I zoom in a little bit over there, you can see that we are not cutting into the trees at the moment. We've just got the blue is still there. So how do we deal with this? Right, well, what we do is let me just zoom back slightly. We take the refine brush tool here. You can see there's a second one down as refine brush, and we take quite a large brush here. And what we do is we click the positive that's in the center, we click that on a plain bit of sky, and then you can just, holding it down, you can work your way left and right, because we picked up on the sort of the darker area under here. We can do the same again. I'll go over here, pick a bit of the blue sky over here, and just wash that in again. We can just wash that in. Now, unfortunately, the edges of the trees are a bit blurred, and that's because it was very windy when we were up there last weekend. So I'm just going to do the same over here and just bring that colour, bring this colour through the trees here. See, we can pull that through there. There we go. So that really does help to build that color back into the trees and make it look a little bit more realistic with the sky coming through, because we didn't have a huge amount of contrast, as you could see from that sky. So let's go over to this side. Now I'm not too worried to what's to the right of this tree, because I'm actually going to crop this and use the tree as an edge in the crop. But what we're going to do is just try and build some of that extra color in over here. So again, pick a darker area and then just wash it into the top of the trees there. I'm just going to do the same up here. Make sure this is all nice through here, so you've got that full color in the sky. I think that always makes it look quite nice, and it also thins out those branches which are a little bit blurry. We can just thin those away just slightly by using the refine tool. There we go. That's looking really good. So happy with that. So let's just zoom back out. So I'm going to click on the zoom here, and I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key to give me a minus, and I can just pull back, not that far. If I let go of the Option key, I can zoom in again. So we've got the sky we want. That's looking pretty good. Now we're just going to align this with the image underneath. So I'm just going to accept that sky for now. I'm happy with that. Just as you do when you accept, you get a duplicate layer option or you get a new layer option. Duplicate layer just makes one single extra layer. Whereas if you go with the new layers, it will give you all the layers associated with the sky replacement, which you probably don't want. So we're just going to stick with duplicate layers. There is also two lighting modes which you can use: multiply, which is the one we're on, or screen, which you can use in brighter circumstances when you want to try to do a sky replacement, but no good for these darker, lower contrast. So happy with that. I'm just going to click OK. So it's now created a new layer. This is the top layer. That's the before, and that's the after the sky replacement. So I don't need the middle layer anymore. I don't need this layer anymore. So I'm just going to right click and delete that layer. Okay. So we've now just got this layer and this layer. So I want to align them so they're exactly aligned. So I can do that by highlighting the top one, holding down the Shift key, and clicking the layer below. So we just got the two layers highlighted. What we can do is we can go up to File, Edit, and then go in Edit. We go to Auto Align Layers. Okay, click on Auto Align. Auto's fine. You don't need to change anything here. Just click OK, and it will do the alignment. There you go. It's done. So if I remove the top and the bottom, put them back and forth, they're exactly lined up. Okay, so that's what's very important, that we do that alignment. So we want to try to bring through some of the light from below. Now, how would we do that? Well, the best way to do that is to add a layer mask onto this layer itself. And how we do that is we select the top layer. There it is selected, and we can either right click on it and select layer mask. Okay, or what we can do is we just click this little flag down the bottom here, and that will allow us to add a layer mask, and layer mask appears. Now a white conceals. Okay, so when you've got a white layer mask, you can't see through it. If it's black, you can see through it. And I can demonstrate that. If I select black as my color here over on the color palettes here, so I've got black and I've got white. If you want to swap them around, you can use the little arrows here to just swap them around, or you can just hit X. You can just hit X to move them. So if I take black, I take a brush, which is up here, or I can press B. Now I've got a brush. I'm just going to put this occupancy up to 100% and the flow up to 100% for now. And I'm just going to make it very hard, a hard circle, right? So if I click on here, it will make a black. You see there, it's white at the moment. If I click, it will go black. Okay, and the black shows through. So if I click there, for example, you can see that I could make that part of the church is what we see behind. Remember, if I take the top away, that's what you got behind. Okay, but I don't want to do. I'm just using Command Z or Control Z to undo. So we don't necessarily want to have it quite so abrupt. we don't want to have 100%. We want to be able to blend what we saw in here. So I'm just zooming in here. So we want to blend the light in that was in here. So what I'm going to do is going to drop the occupancy back to about 40%, and I'm going to drop the flow back to about the same, about 40%. And I'm going to select in the brushes, I'm going to select a lot of feather. You can see this full feather here, and it moves the hardness from 100% to 0. Okay, and we don't want too big a brush, so I'm just going to take like sort of 80 size brush here. We can make that brush bigger or smaller again by just using the square keys. So let me just select 80 in there. Right. So if we can use the square keys, you see, to make it bigger or smaller. So what we want to do is we want to actually highlight these windows. So I'm going to make my brush the same size as the window here. I'm going to click at the bottom. I'm going to move up to top, shift and click again. Right. So move to the bottom and click and shift, and that will light up this area here. This is taking 40% of the light that was from behind. So we're just creating little black lines, if you like, on the layer mask is what we're doing. Same here. So I'm just going to click, shift click, and the shift click creates straight lines, is effectively what we're doing. So I'm just going to go up and over there, and I'm just holding down the shift so I can just click around that window there, and then I'm just going to go in and just fill that in there. Could have used a bigger brush, would have saved me some time. So but just filling that in, and as long as you keep hold of the mouse button key whilst you're doing this, it will only give you one pass of that particular level. So I'm not letting go. I'm just doing that as a single pass. Okay, so there we go. So you can see that's nicely illuminated. Just going to do this window here. So click, shift click, just to light up. Same here, click, just light that up a little bit more. So now this higher area also needs to be illuminated up here. So I'm just going to do the same thing again here. So we're just going to light these higher areas up here. So I'm just going to freehand that in there so you can see the beams inside the porch area. Same here, just going to freehand that in. There we go, and just light up that top area there as well. Down into this little arch area here. And I'll tell you what, it amazes me how good it really can look when we come through here. I'm just going to light that beam up just a little bit more through there. There you go. Same here, we're just going to a little bit more light on there. And we'll just light that one up a little bit more as well. Just going to go to the top there. So it's looking pretty good. You can see the shadow here from where my torch was used on, and the bushes were just providing a bit of light. Now, there was some light coming out, so I'm just going to zoom out slightly. There was some light coming out from here, if you recall. So what we can do is take a slightly bigger brush here, and we can just paint those lines in, just literally just like that. Because we're on the layer mask, and we're using that layer mask to paint it through. There was some on the other side as well, so we'll just paint those in as well. So a little bit coming out the front, just make that a little bit brighter. Slightly bigger brush. There we go. And I'm just going to come out the front here as well, because we had some light coming out the front of that porch. There we go. So we're able to just wash that back in, and I think that works extremely well. I'm going to add a little bit more contrast to this when we move back into Lightroom. But I think you get the idea of how the light works here and how we can use these layer masks to do the things we want to do. So let's just zoom out. Let's go back out to fit screen, and I'm happy to take this back into Lightroom now. So to do this, what we do, I just want to bring these two layers together because I don't want to waste memory. And it's another good tip, particularly if you haven't got the fastest computer, is to try not to take too many layers back into Lightroom within the data, because it just makes for a bigger image, more megabytes for the computer to deal with. So what I tend to do, if I'm happy with what I'm seeing, which I am, I highlight the second one by holding down the shift key. I right click here and I merge visible, so we have a single layer now, and that single layer is what we're looking at. Now I can go to File, Close, because I don't want it in Photoshop anymore. I want to move it back into Lightroom, and that's why we use close. Again, comes down to supporting your computer by not having two programs running with a lot of information in the RAM. So you're taking all the memory the computer's got and just using it on the one item, the one app that you're working on. So I'm going to click save, and that's going to put it back into Lightroom, and there we go, it's back into Lightroom. So I want to just correct some of the perspective here, and then we'll also do a crop. So let's go down to the transform, and I'm going to go straight to guided. I'm not going to try auto. I just want to make sure that I've got this tower straight. So you can see I'm pulling a line on that tower there, and I want one line at the end of the building here, just to make sure that that is also straight. So just correct for that. As you can see, this is straight and this is straight, so this is working very well. So let's go to the crop. So I'm going to take the crop now. I'm going to come up here a little bit, bring that down. So we're going to have a little bit of a sort of pano effect, really, and bring this across to take out that line there. So I'm actually going to pull that across to get the rule of thirds on this tower. Well, just before I do that, let's move this one over, and then we can put the tower on the rule of thirds. So as I say, I'm going to use the tree as the edge here, and then I'm just going to, it's not going to work with that on the rule of thirds at the moment because we've come over. So we can put that in the center. So that's a good way to just get your crop lined up. There we go. Now we do need to try to see whether it's a standard size. So make sure your padlock up here in the top right corner, make sure your padlock is unlocked. Click on the custom, and then we want to pick a standard setting for ratio. Now this looks to me like a 16:10, might be a 16:9. So let's click on 16:10. Okay, that wasn't too bad. And then we'll try the 16:9. So the 16:9 is giving us, if I open that up at the top there, open this up down the bottom here, get that back in the center. I think 16:9 might work well. Let's just try the 16:10 again. So again, I can just reposition this crop so that's in the center. And now I'm going to go with the 16:10. I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to hit return, accept that sort of crop there, and then I'm quite happy with this. Now I really do want to move the church more over, to be honest, because there's quite a lot of sky here, a big gap, and then there's a lot of darkness over here. So I think I probably do want to move this over. So I can either pull back a little bit on this tree here, pull this one over to the right slightly, and just pull that across so that we're probably coming onto the edge of this buttress on the church here, and see if that works well. I'm just going to bring that down slightly. There we go. And let's see. Now that works better. That feels better. I've got the edge of that tree there showing the sky. Didn't really want to do that. So let's go a little bit more that way, and then let's just bring this down a little bit so we've got that tree out. Bring it up at the bottom, and now on the edge of that buttress, tree's covered. So it's quite important to get the right cropped. It gives you the right composure of your image. And then you got a better feeling. You know, the gap between the bottom of the building here and the bottom of the shot, and the sort of top of the church up to the top of the sky, is sort of feels about right, really. Okay, so back in Lightroom, we've got the image as we want it. Now we just need to do the relight. So I use a little bit of my day to night techniques and the masking processes that you've seen me use in my other videos. What I want to do is I want to bring this side of the church a bit lighter. I want these gravestones over here a little bit lighter as well. I want some change of light. This area over here is really crying out for some more light. And I want to just do some more with the sky here. Let's do that first. So I'm in masks. I'm going to select sky, so it will select the sky for me. And now it's also selected the whole of the lighted area of the church here. So I don't want that in my mask at the moment. So I'm just going to press subtract. Now I don't want the tower in the sky, so I'm going to select objects first, and I want to remove the tower from the selection. So because it's a subtract objects, and I've painted that object, you can see it's removed just the object. I can use another subtract object, and I can make the brush much bigger this time, and I can take out the whole church if I want to. So if I just draw along the edge of the church here like this, just covering those areas there. And I'm just going to go over the edge here. Now, it's very clever at determining what the object is, because we've got object selection. So I'm just going to cross there, and then we'll just paint that center in. So we've made a big selection, and there you go. Using the object subtraction of an object, it's able to take that out. Works very, very well, doesn't it? Now I'm going to leave the bleed of the mask over here, because I want whatever we do to the sky to sort of happen here in terms of color and darkness. So I'm quite happy with that. And the front edge of the tree bark here also should work okay. So I'm just going to subtract a brush. Just want to make sure we've got nothing over here coming through from the sky. So that's good. Okay, so that's our mask for the sky. So what shall we do to the sky? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is going to make it a little bit darker. I'm going to add some contrast, because contrast is really good in skies. I'm just going to bring the highlights down just a little bit, not too much, just about -10, -12 there. I'm going to open up the shadows just a little bit, so you end up hollowing out the clouds using opening shadows. You can see it here. If I put that back to where it was, it's there. But if you open up the shadows, you can bring the brighter areas up, which looks good. I'm not going to touch the blacks and whites on the sky, but what I am going to do is I'm going to go down whilst I'm still in this mask here, and I'm going to go to clarity, and we're going to give this a big handful of clarity. There we go. You know what? You can give it a little bit more. Wow, that looks amazing. Little bit of texture in the sky, not a lot, just about 5, just to get the edges of the clouds looking really, really good. And then I'm just going to dehaze ever so slightly. So I'm just going to bring that to the right, about 15 points, something like that. And that will just give us this sort of defined edges in the sky. That's starting to look pretty good, actually. Quite happy with that. So happy with the sky now. Now you might still be looking at this magenta over here and thinking, oh, that doesn't work. Now, if I was going to do a color image, I would correct that. But because I'm going to go black and white, the color doesn't really matter too much. What matters is the contrast, the clarity, and also the darkness and white in terms of how it looks. I can see there's a little tree branch there. Let me just pop back to content aware heel brush there and just take that out. There we go. Just tidy that up. Super. Okay, so pretty happy with that. There is a little halo on the edge there of that, on the edge of that. Can you see on the tower? If I zoom in a little bit, you'll see, let me just hold down the space bar to move up, and you can see there's just a little bit of a halo there. And how we can deal with that is we can go back into the sky mask. Here it is. So what we can do to help this is we can sort of take the mask of the sky and we can add it more to that line. Now it seems a little bit sort of negative intuitive, if you like. It's too bright, so we want to add. Well, what we're doing by adding in a mask is we're adding more of the mask. So we're adding more of the mask effect, which was a darkening of the sky. So you have to sort of think reverse logic. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click add. So we're inside mask 1. I'm going to click add. I'm going to add a brush. Okay, I'm going to take a small brush, and I'm just going to highlight at the top. They're going to click once, and then I'm going to go down to the bottom here, hold the shift down and click again, and then I'm going to just go down to that bottom edge, and then I'm going to come back to that point. I'm still holding the shift key down, and I'm just going to keep going very gently back and forth along that edge just to find, there we go. I'm just holding the shift key down, so I'm drawing a straight line backwards and forwards, and there you go. That has really reduced that. I might even do this side as well. So click at the top there, hold down a straight line, come in there, and just, you see how that's just sort of darkening that down because we're adding the sky mask to that edge. And there's actually a little bit of reflection there you can see on the very edge. So that's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to zoom back out now, and that looks a lot better, must admit. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Good. So let's just do the rest of the relight here. So this is a bit bright on this side of the church here. So we can either put a radial gradient on here, or we can darken the whole area. Now we already have a gradient with the brightness of light. So what we could do is create a new mask, take an object, make the brush a little bit bigger as we did before, and we can select the church here. So I'm just going to come through, select the porch as well, and then maybe up here, and we can just paint that area in. So we're using the object selection. It will select the church. There we go. That's what we wanted. And then we can just drop the exposure slightly. There we go. Depending on how much you want to go, I'm going to come down to about there. Okay, so happy with that. That's done well, but we want to brighten this area up over here. Now, I'm actually going to create a new mask. I'm going to use a radial gradient here, and I'm going to pull a radial gradient over this area. I'm just going to turn it slightly, move it down, and put the brightest part where the window is. I'm just going to light that into there. And remember, we can remove parts of this afterwards. So I'm just going to then go to the slider here and just bring the slider up. I'm going to open up the shadows so we can see more of this area here. I'm just going to bring that brightness down just a little bit. And what I will do is add some clarity to this area over here. Make it pop just a little bit, not too much. And I'm just going to back the contrast off just a little bit. Now, the stones, because they're quite, you can see there's a lot of textures there. So what we can do is we can reduce the textures just to soften that area just a little bit, so it's not overpowering. Maybe I've got a bit too much clarity there, so just bring that back. Okay, that's nice. I like that there, and that's working quite well. I don't think I need to worry too much about this. I probably don't want it quite so bright here, so I'm just going to subtract a brush, and I'm going to make sure that the brush is about half flow, about 40–50% flow, 100% feather, because we want a nice sort of feathered edge to this, and I just want to take away any effect from that radial. There we go. So we want to light the gravestones up. So create a new mask, radial gradient. Let's pop a radial gradient over here. Just select it to the same angle, pop it in there. Might even make that a little bit bigger, and then just boost the exposure a little bit, not too much. Add a little bit of contrast there, and I'm going to add a little bit of clarity. Again, not too much. And I'm going to take away a little bit of the texture there. That works well. The light around this area, we just need to brighten that up slightly. So again, create another radial gradient. We're going to pop that in here, just crossing that area there. Just going to turn it slightly. And then we're going to do the same sort of things here. We're just going to bring up the brightness slightly, but we can add more contrast in here. Highlights can come a little bit brighter. And I'm just going to back the shadows off ever so slightly. That's nice. Now, you can see there's light over there coming from behind the church. So what we can do here is we can copy this one if we want to, and we can duplicate this mask here. We can grab that, put it over here, and you can see we can do a little bit of magic over here. And I might just boost that exposure just a little bit more. There we go. You just got this sort of beam of light coming in there. Now, this was the torch, if you remember, lighting up. This is a bit bright. So I'm going to create a new radial gradient here, and I'm going to cover this this bit of the torch light that you can see with the radial gradient. So I'm just going to pop that in there like so, where the torch light was, and I'm just going to give that a negative and take it away. Can you see? We've taken that away. We will darken these corners with some vignettes in a little while. Now I just want a little bit more light over here. I think we just need a little bit more foreground. So another radial gradient over here, maybe coming in from behind this tree. Try not to have your radials 90 degrees square. So always try to offset them slightly. And we'll just bring that over here, and we'll just give that a little bit of exposure there. Just around the bottom of that tree. That works quite well. Yeah, happy with that. I think where we did the correction here, there's still a couple of little lines there. I'm just going to drop back to the healing with the healing brush, with also the healing tool, with content aware, and I just want to just get in there and just see if we can correct that a little bit, so we don't end up with a big blurry blob in there. Let's have a look, see if that works. So that's not so bad. It's given us a little bit of texture there, a little bit of interest. Just trying to fill that edge there. I don't want that bit. So I'm gonna go with that because it looks quite natural over there. I might just blur it ever so slightly because it's quite crisp, and we can do that by going into create a mask, take a brush. The brush is going to have quite a low flow on it like we've done previously, lots of feather. But what I'm going to do is going to go down, and I'm going to undo sharpness here. I'm going to have a minus sharpness. Take a small brush and just paint over slightly just to ease away the detail with there. We can also reduce the clarity there just to blend it in just a little bit more. So I'm just gonna do that and reduce the texture slightly as well. There we go, and that's blended in. That looks okay. So where are we? We're nearly there. I think we need to darken the top of the sky down, darken the foreground, and add a vignette. So let's do that just before we do. I think we might want to brighten up the area, add a bit more contrast in here as well. So let's just do that. We're going to go with brush. We're going to create a mask. We're going to take a brush. Let me just zoom in a little bit. We'll just use the space bar to come down. Still see some branches in the sky there. Let me just, before we do that, let's correct those. So move down here and zoom in on the porch. So I think we want to add a little bit more contrast to this light that we've got in here. So we can do that by selecting in our masks. We can select a new mask. Should I select object here, or I'm going to select object. I'm going to take an object brush, not too big, so we can just draw around here. I just want to select this porch area. Just going to come up there. I think we should do the whole thing just to the top there, down here, around here, and then we're just going to go along the top of that bench. We don't want the bench in there, and then round. Make sure you fill it in. There we go. An object tool will select that for us. That's done quite well. So I want to add some contrast to that area there. I want to open up the shadows a bit more, just a little bit, and bring up those highlights, not too much, just to make that pop. More contrast, I think. Yeah, and I might add a bit of clarity into this as well, just to make it all too much. In fact, I might want to back that off a little bit, actually. Reduce that contrast a bit much there, and just going to add a little bit of colour there. I do like the look in there. I know we're going black and white, so it doesn't matter too much. Okay, that's good. And then I just want to light these windows up. So again, we can create a new mask, use an object tool here, our object selection tool for masks. We can select the window there using that object mask. There we go. It's very clever at what it does. Selects the window. We can brighten that up a little bit more, add in a bit of contrast there, make that a little bit brighter, maybe a little bit of highlights as well. You see, we can make that look really good. Same over here. We can do the same with these. So I could add here an object. Now I've got those settings, I can add to this mask. So I can just paint that object in there. It will select that one for us. There we go. We can add another object. So we can just add these windows in, and it will select for you the edges of those windows. You don't need to try to draw it freehand. Add another object. Just get these windows up to the brightness that makes them look quite realistic. I'm going to add another object. Here we go. Just want to make sure that we get that window. That looks good. This window over here also. So let's just keep adding objects to this mask on the basis that we've put the settings in that we want. There we go. And then just that roof line. I just want to brighten that roof line. So add another object, and I think we'll do them as separate areas like this, so we can brighten up each of the areas rather than doing the whole thing, because the wood's quite bright outside anyway. So we'll just brighten those areas up by adding. And you can just keep adding as many masks or as many objects or radial gradients as you wish inside these. If you find that your computer is starting to struggle a little bit because you've added an awful lot of masks into your image, what you can do is you can basically just right click, edit in, send it over to Photoshop. Right, as soon as it arrives in Photoshop, close and save and bring it back again. And what it will do is it will rasterize all of those masks that you've created into a new image, and effectively the computer doesn't have to then be processing every single one of those separate mask renders. It will just do a single render for the whole image, and then you can carry on adding more masks. If you're struggling with that with a computer a little bit older, maybe not the quickest in the world, that's a good way to keep on top of it. But of course, it's non-destructive. That you lose your non-destructive mode. You can't go back and change things if you do that. So just bear that in mind. But it's a good way to get your machine catching back up with the speed. I want to make this a little bit brighter out here. So I'm just going to add a new mask, new radial. Just going to pop a radial in there that falls outside that door there, like so, and just bring that up just a little bit brighter as well. There we go. That's good. Happy with that. So we've got the light coming out from there. You know, if I had time, I would like maybe the window here as well. The window's back here, give it a little bit more, but I'm conscious of the time for this video. I don't want it to run on too long. So let's do the final touches and let's do the black and white. So top of the screen, create a mask, a linear gradient, and I'm just going to pull a linear gradient down from above like that. I don't want the church to be affected by this. So if you go to the three little dots on the linear gradient, you can intersect the mask with the sky, okay? And that way what we're doing is we're overlaying the linear gradient with the sky mask to try to avoid cutting into the top of the tower. There we go, it's just processed it, so it won't apply too much to there. So if I now darken the sky, it won't necessarily darken down the top of the tower there. So I'm just going to bring the top of the sky down, but I'm going to add some blue because I like the blue that's coming through up here. So on the temperature slider, just add in some blue up there. And again, you're saying, well, we're going black and white, Jamie. I know, but color contrast works really well in black and white. Trust me. So I'm just going to add a bit more blue in there. I like that a lot. Now the sky itself, the scene here, this needs just a little bit more color. So I can also just take a brush, create a new mask, take a brush with lots of color. We've got reasonably low flow and a high feather, and I can just paint in there just to increase that color there. That's just to make it come a little bit more. And then we're going to just put a linear gradient from the bottom, and I'm going to just bring it up like this over this way. Too dark down there. Just going to bring that up, sort of cutting from that side over, and just darken it down a little bit, not too much. There we go, just third of a stop. Okay, now the last thing I'm going to do before we go black and white is put in a go down to effects and put in a post-crop vignette just to darken those corners down ever so slightly. Now, not much of one there. I'm coming down to about -15, something like that. But it's really important when you do a post-crop vignette to go to the feather slider and open the feather slider all the way up. You get a beautifully feathered vignette there. Okay, so we're ready to go black and white. Now, I'm going to show you how I would do it sticking in Lightroom, but I'm also going to show you using Silver Efex Pro, which is my favorite bit of software for doing black and white, and you'll see why. So let's do, initially, let's come out of masks. Let's do a black and white in Lightroom. Now what you can do is just click straight away black and white, but before we do that, let's increase the vibrance of the scene, +30, and a little bit of saturation. Okay, so it doesn't look very natural now, the colors have gone out, but we need that color contrast, right? So now if I click black and white, we've got a little bit of depth going on here. It's not too bad, but what we do want to do is give it that black and white pop. So using the tools that we got available in Lightroom, which is just this top panel here, we can add clarity. Okay, that always helps a great deal. And when you add clarity, you increase the textures. So you can undo the additional textures by just going with a minus on the textures, right? We can look at the contrast. Now there's a lot of contrast in this image already. So what we could do is actually back the overall contrast off slightly, which opens the scene up a little bit more. So just back that off a little bit, and I'm going to open the shadows up just a little bit here, just to bring, you can see it brings all of this sort of contour and colors in, sorry, not colors, contours and lighting in these areas over here. Makes it quite interesting. And I'm going to bring up the textures just a little bit. Actually, I went probably a little bit too far. That's quite good. And then I'm just going to move the temp shade down. Now what that does is it takes where the blues are and makes them brighter, or if you move them the other way, it will take where the oranges and the yellows are and it will make those brighter. So by moving that, you can affect how the brightness within a black and white works. So here I'm thinking, well, with the sky, probably want to come in with a positive 16, something like that, and that makes it work quite well. I'm going to add a little bit of haze to this shot, so I'm just going to come up slightly, just give it a little bit of a wisp on the haze, and yeah, I think that's pretty good. I'd be quite happy now with that. I perhaps might want to darken the oranges just slightly by going down to the what would be the HSL sliders, but of course now we're in black and white. We can change just the oranges, and we can make the blues a little bit darker there, or brighter if we want to as well. So I can increase the blues there just so that you open up this sort of part of the sky. And the greens, all the grass, we can change. It's quite interesting. Look at that. You can change just the green. We can back the green off slightly. So I'm going to say that's a pretty good image there. I'm just going to pop down here and make a virtual copy of that. So create a virtual copy so we can do a comparison with Silver Efex Pro. So I'm just going to go back into the image. There it is. I'm going to go back into history here, and I'm just going to go back to where we changed to black and white. There it is there. So I'm going to click on that, and we're going to step back to where we were. So saturation and vibrance was the last shot, right? So this time I'm going to right click and I'm going to use Silver Efex Pro 2. Now the latest edition of DxO Nick Collection, it says they're on Collection 6, but their version of Silver Efex Pro is still only number 3. They made some slight improvements between 2 and 3, but the differences are very small. So Silver Efex Pro 2 or 3 work pretty well the same way. There's a couple of little additions in 3. It's my favorite. It's my favorite black and white software. I just wish they'd sell it separately and not as a group, because a lot of the other stuff you get, Analog Effects Pro, Color Effects Pro, they all have their uses, but I don't tend to use them really. I tend to just use Silver Efex Pro. So I'm going to click on Silver Efex Pro, and it's going to send us into the software with the edits from Lightroom, and this piece of software has so many presets. There are so many different options. I just created 9 of my favorites here, and these are the ones here on the left hand side, and we can work through them. So neutral is what we're on. That's just coming over here, and we've got all the sliders. We can change things if we want to, but the presets, you can start to look at different options. So there's the high structure harsh. Now, I quite like the smooths rather than the harshes, so this is high structure smooth. We can brighten the scene. When we're in that preset, we can still say, well, we want a bit more brightness on the scene, so we can brighten it up. That works really well. That's nice. I quite like that. Full dynamic harsh, that's a bit much. Again, you can bring down the brightness if you want to try to look at that in a different way, but I don't think we can. Full dynamic smooth, that's quite nice. If we bring up the brightness here, again, let's add some brightness to that shot, not too much. And then we can add a bit of structure here. We can put some structure in. That can work quite well as well. So maybe a little bit of contrast as well. That's quite nice. And then there's a number of others down here that I tend to play with. So fine art is a good one as well. If you just make some minor changes to it, add that brightness in, add a little bit more structure into it, that can work quite well. But we're going to go back up to high structure, and we're going to do high structure smooth. And then we're going to add that brightness in that we had before, not too much. Bring that back to about 20, 5, yeah, there we go. Add in a little bit more structure to the scene. Yeah, that's looking really good. I'm going to just open up the shadows a little bit with the shadow sliders. That works quite well. And the highlights, I want to bring those highlights down, so I'm going to bring those right the way over. The sky is very bright here. And if we think, well, the sky's too bright, we can go into the control points here, select a control point, make that control point bigger or smaller, so we can say, well, let's work at this area. But it does feather away, so you don't need to be too big. And then we can just drop the brightness slightly on that sky. There we go. And that works. Even maybe add in a little bit more structure into the sky there at that point. And that works really nice. You have to be careful because you can see there's quite a tight halo on the edge of that building there. So we have to be careful we don't go too bright there. So I'm just going to pop that there. That's nice. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. Just feel that it needs to be a little bit dark around this area here. So I'm just going to grab another control point. I'm going to pop it over here. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Here we go. Select that there. Just make it a little bit bigger. Maybe move it down in the corner a little bit more. Just going to move that further over into the corner. And it's just not quite so dark. Let's just come up a little bit on there. There we go. That's looking better. There we go. And I think I'm going to do the same in this corner here. Not too big. Just a little bit darker. We'll just darken that away. Just a little bit more there. Yep, and the last things you can do, you've got color filters here. You can apply those. You can have a blue color filter if you want to that, which gives you quite an interesting look on the church. A green one, which will show the grass much brighter. And then you've got yellows and oranges, which will brighten the sky, and a red, which can look quite nice. The red can be quite good. And back to the standard grey there. You know, in fact, I like the red. I'm going to stick with the red filter. And that means the red light's being prioritized. You've also got your sliders down here. You can add grain, by the way, but we're not going to do that. But you can move the color sliders here as well if you want to just affect the blue, for example, in the sky. We can slide that over, and we can just make that a little bit brighter up there. We can darken the grass down slightly. The greens, just bring that down a little bit more. There we go. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. Do I need to add in just a little bit more brightness? We'll do that back in Lightroom, I think, for now. But one thing I do like to do here is toning. This has got exceptionally good toning options. You can pick different colors here and just hover over them, and it will give you the look that you want. Once it renders it, there we go. You can pick different colors, and I love the selenium, so I'm going to go here on 5. It puts a blue across it, and then it just puts the grey back in. So 4's really nice. There we go. And I'm going to go with 4. And I'm going to say I'm happy with this shot inside Silver Efex. We're going to just make some quick minor adjustments when we go back in. So I'm going to just click Save. It will save this and put it back into Lightroom, and then we can just finish the image off. So there we go. So remember, we had the two options. We had this one that we've done here through Silver Efex, and we had the Lightroom option as well. So there's the Lightroom, and there's the Silver Efex. So very similar, but just slightly different. The toning is the real key. You just get a lovely toning. So I'm just going to finish this off here. I think we need to just I don't know, bring the center up a little bit, but darken that sky down. So I'm just going to take a mask. I'm going to take a radial, take quite a large radial here. I'm going to pop that in the center here, so it's picking up this. It's picking up the sky here, and I'm just going to bring the highlights down a little bit, such like that. That works quite well. And then I'm going to come out of masks. I'm just going to brighten the whole scene slightly. That's nice. A little bit down on the highlights again, a little bit up on the shadows, not too much, just a little bit there. I'm going to check my blacks and whites, so I'm going to hold down the optional Alt key. I'm going to find where my whites are. There, plus 40 I'm going to go, and then I'm going to do my blacks, going to bring them down and just add a little tiny bit of black in there. Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe just back the textures off just a little bit and bring down the clarity just a little bit, because it's just a bit much there. I could play with this for hours. I must admit, I have great fun doing these things. So I'm going to stop there, because otherwise I'll keep going. And I'm going to say, yeah, I'm happy with this one. So anyway, there we go. That's light painting, taking an old English church and doing a sky replacement, and turning what, let's be honest, wasn't really a very good photograph, and trying to make something of it. And I'm quite happy with this, to be honest. This has worked very well. So just full page it. There we go. So if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a like, and I always love to read your comments and any questions that you have, and also tips. I get some good tips from people as well, so feel free to put something down below. And if you haven't already subscribed, it would be really great for you to subscribe and join me here on YouTube. I'm having a great time. So for now, I'm going to say bye bye.